refurbishing and Nkana smelter. And I said, what amount is needed to do that job? And said, $78 million. And I sat back and said, where am I going to get that money? To attract, because that was the only company left to talk to. I'd gone around the whole world to look at possible suitors to our mines, possible buyers. Glencore in Australia, Codeco in Brazil. The Brazilian government said, no, we can't allow a company to buy into Zambia, unless only for Konkola Deep. But what we wanted to dispose of was the rest of the old assets. So only Anglo-American came through, and I was in Washington when the ZCCM privatization team led by Francis Kaunda brought in a report of a proposal by Anglo-American for me to look at after ZP had looked at it. And when I looked at it and I saw the gaps that Anglo needed to be talked to seriously. And after talking to Anglo through Mr. Oppenheimer, there was the question of how to deal with the Nkana smelter. And I had to run back to London to discuss with the DFID officials, but then Barry Choker and later on somebody else, Barry Ariston and others, and negotiate with a number of, use information as much as we could to negotiate with the Treasury authorities and all these people to offer us a grant, not a loan, but a grant of $78 million, which was needed for Nkana smelter, for on lend to Zambia, to our investment corporation, ZIC, for on lend to Anglo, to rehabilitate Nkana smelter. And with that, we hit the bullseye of accessing HIPIC. We reached HIPIC decision point by December 2000. I remember waiting in Elephant Head Hotel in Kabwe. I don't know what it's called by now. When I received a call from Washington saying the Zambia's case was going to be postponed because I had given a supplementary budget to Parliament. And a Zimbabwean colleague, Zimbabwean intel was working in the British Embassy, had filtered that information to suggest that Zambia was out of sync on the program of privatization because it had under accession to HIPIC because it had announced this supplementary budget. I had to sit down in that hotel, stop because I was going to Chienge, stop in that hotel with my SAT phones and my Nokia phones at that time, those big ones, waiting for the decision. I argued with directors in the IMF that somebody had it wrong. My supplementary budget was necessary, not because it was an expenditure out of the budgetary profile that we had done, but because we had found new funds which needed to be approved by Parliament to be spent. So if you have new funds, you still have to go to Parliament to have the authority to spend those new funds. So that's supplementary doesn't necessarily mean a negative. And that's what I advised even the Mozambican government when they had the same problem. And the IMF saw through my argument that yes, it is correct. And we were approved to enter the HIPIC decision point. But it was a tense moment.
So you would confidently say that we did get a good deal out of privatization?
We did get a good deal. One, that not only did we sell at the price that we did, but we got $78 million as a grant. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
We got $78 million as a grant, which we will not pay to the British taxpayer. You understand that? Take aside the amount that we sold. Zambia should not be insulted. It got $78 million that we didn't pay back to the taxpayer because of this $8,400 that I used to entertain the British authorities and then you give us information to negotiate. Zambian must understand they're beneficiaries to that $8,400. What did we also get? Decision point to cancel more than $7 billion of debt. What could you ask for more? Why? What could you ask for? We did our best to bail out our country. By 2011, Zambia had $4 billion in reserve under Honorable Msokotwane's stewardship of the Ministry of Finance. So, fellow Zambians, let's not hit it onto ourselves. Let's not listen to people like Vendetta, whatever director, what is his name, his owner, who laughs at us. Bear in mind that
a different story.
Bear in mind that Anglo walked away because of the ideology that came in during the Third Republic. Okay? Or Fourth Republic, I don't know what you can call it. During His Excellency Manawasa's government, they walked away. Having helped us to secure the $78 million in addition to the price we put on them to buy the mines, the concessions we had for them, which Zambians sometimes had problems with, the fact that we had to change some of our laws to allow Anglo to buy this, and First Quantum, not just Anglo-American, but First Quantum, to buy these mines. Regardless of that, we had these clear benefits from that process. We have now Nkana Smelter that works, that provides for the mining companies to smelt their copper, and we also had the opportunity to cancel the debt.
Let me quickly read you. It's a bit long. Something.
It's all right.
That Minister responsible for higher education, Bram Nshimba, wrote, and I want you to give a genuine comment on it. So he writes, "For some of us, it's personal. That's all we ever knew. We were born in ZCCM hospitals. We lived in ZCCM houses. The play parks and other social amenities were built and maintained by ZCCM. Our parents worked underground in ZCCM mines, earning a living for us. The schools we went to were built and run by ZCCM. The water we drank and clothes we wore came from ZCCM. Even the food we ate came from ZCCM-owned and operated farms. ZCCM was our parent. When we completed high school at ZCCM secondary school, they sent us abroad to train as engineers, doctors, and other specialty fields. This was the ultimate goal, and we all aspired towards this. A chance to go abroad so young and get the exposure. Now, as we were graduating at a great cost to the nation, ready to come and pay back and plow all the newly acquired training, knowledge, and skills back into ZCCM, we were served with redundancy notices before we even worked for one day. Who fires people before they even work for one day, he wonders. So for some of us, the discussion about ZCCM and extension and other states' assets that were negligently disposed of, and shattered our life trajectories in a way that we didn't plan for was extremely painful. This discussion, therefore, is personal for some of us, and asking for truthful and honest explanation on what truly transpired from those that were given the mandate, were given the fiduciary responsibility of disposing of these companies is not too much to ask. They owe us some answers. They owe answers to those many kids whose chances of going to train abroad was cut short. This is Honorable Brian Mushimba. He seems to be lamenting that probably, you didn't do a good job. Those who are mandated to ensure that this program is done in a smooth way, probably you didn't do a good job. And when they're asking questions, all they need are explanations.
Yes. And they have the right to have explanations, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's explaining. But let's be wary of certain words and concepts we use. Negligence, negligently disposed of. Negligence in law is a very technical term, and we need to be careful as to what we mean, whether we are using it in lay terms or legal terms.
Yeah.
In legal terms, the law that was applied, the law that put in place Zambia Privatization Agency, the law that demanded that certain public corporations be privatized, and if we want to be ruled by government of laws rather than of men, we follow the law. And the Honorable Minister, or whatever his position is, unless he wants to be against that principle of government of laws and cry foul because he was not weaned properly from breastfeeding out of public purse, I'm sorry, I fall on the side of the law. So we are being brought here as former ministers to account. Some of us have gone through courts of law to account. Some of us have stayed even in prisons for months to account. We all have a responsibility to account to the Zambian people for what they think is interest. And that interest under the law must be respected. So if Katele Kalumba did something that appears to be out of the law, he's brought to account. No one is above the law. The Honorable Mushimba?
Brian Mushimba is Minister of Higher Education.
Yeah, I think he should be, particularly being Minister of Higher Education, he should understand the intricacies of ideological changes, which bring in new laws. The one-party state meant that everybody, or all those, the children of man, are fed from one breast. But that breast was now empty. There was no milk. As Honorable Kasonde said, the coffers are empty. In 1991, when he was presenting the budget for 1992, he said, the coffers are empty. And MMD, by the way, did not promise heaven. Chiluba had the wherewithal to ask Zambians, are you ready to sacrifice? Are you ready to suffer for us to go into a new trajectory? And they were all saying, yes, we are ready.
Had you maintained?
Let them not say no now. They said yes then.
Had you maintained on the trajectory of nationalism?
Nationalism or communism?
Communism or socialism. Would we be at this stage now as a country?
Would be in a disaster. Would not even be talking now. Would be a failed state like Somalia.
So this was necessary?
No, this was a necessary ideological transformation to put Zambia back on track and to get the macroeconomics onto equilibrium. The Kwacha was, you remember the inflation rates were in there 200 plus.
Yeah.
No country can survive those conditions of fiscal stances of fiscal policy. Our monetary policy was out of sync. Our Kwacha was worthless. Where we are now, our Kwacha is, despite, we can say, okay, it is a Okwacha is sliding, it's at 19.3 and so on, and we are pushed enough to work hard to make sure that our Kwacha comes onto balance like our South African colleagues have done on the Rand. That's why I criticized the former governor. I said, look, it is your responsibility to be, and you are solely responsible for our monetary policy implementation. And I advised him in person, I advised him publicly, and later on, I'm sorry, the authorities had decided to let go of his services. And no job is permanent to any individual. You understand? So it's only a performance. We were going to a wrong trajectory before 1991. And come 1991, the people of Zambia said, democracy comes with a change in the way we approach our economic fundamentals, the management of our economy. And we had to change. By the way, the whole international, the global market was transforming as well.
To capitalism.
Yeah, to capitalism. Now, including countries like China, they were politically communist,
yeah.
but
in
no sense in terms of economy, they were diversified as a capitalist. That is intelligent socialism, which we were not under during the First and the Second Republic. So we had a new environment, a new global environment, which Zambia was part of. Transforming our economies into a market-driven economy.
The civil society organizations that are calling for, for a commission of inquiry to be set in place to ensure that they get to the bottom of the truth in regards to individuals that were involved in privatization. Are you in support of instituting a commission of inquiry?
There's no bottom to get to. In any public policy, that we will never get closure at all on such matters. There will always be questions. So why don't you leave it to professional investigative wings of government? If there's an impropriety by an individual, let the appropriate professional wings of government investigate that and have closure. Only closure you get is under the law. Commissions of inquiries are debates. They are charters, and charters are words that don't have an end. You can go on debating, go on having counter positions, as we have had with our constitutional commissions. How many constitutional commissions have we had? Many.
Yeah.
But no closure at all. That's the same. Have we had any closure on the Gabon disaster? Where we had the commission of inquiry? No closure at all. The widows of those heroes of sport that made us shine are still lamenting in a state of despair and squalor. They don't even go to the so-called heroes stadium to go and pay tribute to their fallen husbands. So let's not waste. We don't have money to waste on so-called commissions of inquiry.
What should be done?
Let the budgets that have been allocated to professional agencies such as the ACC, the Drug Enforcement Commission, and the FIC, the police, do the right job, the job we pay them for. We pay those agencies to undertake such exercises.
But for example, let me pick on one that you've mentioned, one agency that you've mentioned, the SEC. Don't you think individuals that are supposed to be investigated will be conflicted? I'll give you an example of one individual who was involved in privatization as a legal counsel. It's Edgar Lungu, the President of the Republic of Zambia. Don't you think is the one that appoints the board of the SEC? Is the one that appoints the chair, the person in charge of the SEC? Don't you think it would be conflict of interest if ICC, for example, is instituted to investigate this particular program?
There will be no such conflict of interest. You are now you are going into Alice in Wonderland. Don't go into there, young man. The president appoints the SEC, but it's ratified by Parliament. You understand? So there will be no conflict of interest in that. That's imaginary. So that question is non-question. Let's go to the next one.
Let's get to the next question. Now, you've rightly put it that, our country is not performing, well, you've said it's performing well. It would have not performed quite well if we still maintained on the trajectory of socialism as espoused by Kenneth Kaunda. Let's get to the current state of the economy as it stands now. We've seen the kwacha has been dancing. I think now we're getting to the 20s.
It's 19.3.
19.3, 19.5, somewhere there. What do you think, has led to this state of, current affairs when it comes to our kwacha?
I have said publicly that the governing body that is supposed to superintend over the management of our monetary policy has not done as expected. And without taking anything away from the former governor, who was a very intelligent economist, Dan Kalealia, who I worked with when he was director of operations. He's an intelligent mind. Worked with the World Bank as a director, or an alternate director, and finally as a director of the Africa, I think 22 constituency or something like that. I think it reached to a point of complacency because he should have known that the economy was getting into a recession last year in 2019. And he confessed as such when he went on ZNBC that the economy has been contracting. Now, if the economy had started contracting as early as the beginning of 2019, it is upon him, solely upon him, as the governor of the Bank of Zambia and his team, his leadership, to come up with solutions that should have protected the kwacha. To work with and harmonize his relationship with the fiscal authorities, meaning the Ministry of Finance, especially who superintend over the expenditure profile of all the other ministries, to come up with a plan to ensure that the kwacha is able to fight back. But that wasn't the case. Opportunity arose along the way for him as governor of the Bank of Zambia to address the question of entering an agreement with the IMF. Before the IMF team came in, he was making statements that were that could have really could have jeopardized the negotiations with the IMF. I had publicly stated and counseled that the monetary authorities, meaning the Bank of Zambia, and the financial authorities should put their act together. That Zambia needs this package in order for us to hold back the downward trend that we are facing. Because by January, the GDP growth was only 0.2%. January 2019, GDP was at 4.3%. Around that, 4.6, 4.3. In July 2018, GDP was 6%. Now see the downward trajectory, a very dramatic drop from July 2018 to January 2020 of 0.2% growth rate. Any governor should have known that we had already entered a recession before the COVID crisis, and should have recommended measures, drastic measures, monetary policy measures to tighten up and protect the kwacha. But hell no. Look at our interest rate policy was only eased last month to 8%. It was held at a high rate where possibilities for stimulating the economy could not be availed to ordinary Zambians who could borrow money from commercial banks at the rates that the commercial banks were lending at, because the interest rate policy of the central bank was still very high.
What are some of the mechanisms? What were some of the mechanisms we were supposed to employ, in 2018, 2019, when we realized that we are headed into recession? What are some of the mechanisms we should have employed as a country to ensure that peradventure we shouldn't have found ourselves in this case that we're in as a country?
There are many technical answers to your questions, but one of them is, how do you stimulate the economy by easing up on lending policy, okay, which is solely the responsibility of the central bank. To the central bank to advise government on its fiscal stance. For instance, from 2011 onwards, you had an expansionist policy of the state, where the government, through then President, a very honored and beloved and Michael Chilufya Sata, decided to have an expansionist policy to the state. Expansionist in the sense that he approved the creation of a lot of districts, a new province, a new provincial capital moved from Livingston to Choma, a new province of Muchinga, and many districts created. That is expansion of the cost of the state. He had other very useful and very worthy projects like creation of new universities and building of roads, infrastructure. These are, creation of universities increases your valued human capital. Creation of infrastructure improves trade. But creation of new small unviable districts just cost government. Costs you as a taxpayer money to establish new departments of government at a level of governing where you cannot raise enough resources to run that particular entity.
One of the functions of the Bank of Zambia is to act as the advisory. It acts as an advisory to the central, to the government, the central government.
Ministry of Finance.
Exactly. To what extent is the word of the central, of the Bank of Zambia, word honored? To what extent is it honored?
It is highly honored above all words you receive as the Minister of Finance.
I think we've had time without number.
Let me speak for myself.
Yes, okay. But I want to just couple that with this particular allegation that as we've been seeing. Yeah. People have lamented time without number that there's been a lot of political interference. I do know that the Constitution mandates that there shouldn't be any internal, external interference with the running of the Bank of Zambia. But there's been allegations that there's been a lot of political interference in the running of the Bank of Zambia.
You can make allegations, but you need the facts.
Yeah.
What factual instance do you have for political interference? What factual instance do you have? If you don't have a factual instance, forget about it. You're wasting the public time raising red herrings. You have to have the facts. In which instance has the Bank of Zambia been interfered to do any particular function that it's responsible for. In my time as Minister of Finance, my responsibility was to listen, above all, to the Bank of Zambia governor. By that time was a distinguished Dr. Mwanza, and his staff, including a distinguished, eminent Zambian, Den Kalalia, who was the director of operations, particularly him. He's a numbers man, very sharp mind. I had to listen to him. Oftentimes I called him to my office to get his counsel. Why it was important to have information in your hands of monetary nature for you to make fiscal decisions of how you're going to spend. And many times when we were in a very bad position financially, I was looking for bailout. Where would I get the financing for this? I go to this country and so on. The Bank of Zambia would advise me, hell no, sir, you can't get money from this country. That money is laundered. And I would pay that. They were my eye-openers. So, any minister in the position of being responsible for the treasury must respect the voice of the governor. There's no option.
Do you think Dr. Kalumba was respected?
I think so. Unless he says otherwise. And he should give, if he says otherwise, then he should give instances where he was not respected. And let Zambians evaluate.
I'll be allowing you to give your take on the, on the changes that are at the Bank of Zambia right now. But before that, let me try pick one or two calls. +2609785946 is the number that you are reaching us to get in touch with us and offer your question or your comment to this discourse. Do we have anyone online? Do we have anyone online? Hello, good evening, good afternoon. Is it good morning? All right, we seem not to have someone online, but what is your reaction, before we can get to other pertinent issues that are affecting our economy today? What is your reaction, to the termination of Dr. Kalumba's contract? I think we did see after his termination, there was public outcry that this was wrong.
You say public outcry, you are referring to the social media utterances.
Well,
because in newspapers, your opinion is divided. In your own digital media, radio and television, the opinion is divided. So let's assume that it was an outcry.
Yeah.
That outcry is on the basis of what? That it was wrong to get rid of his services by the President of the Republic of Zambia? The answer is no. The President of the Republic of Zambia...
We'll get to the call later. Let's just maybe address this question. We'll get to the calls later.
Yeah, the President of the Republic of Zambia is by the Constitution mandated to take action on any public officer who is found wanting. So it is in the criteria is simple for the governor of the Bank of Zambia. Is our monetary performance on track or not? If it is not on track, then the governor is culpable.
All right. Let me pick one or two calls. Hello, good morning. +260978594682 is the number that you are calling and are giving us your contributions and your questions. We're discussing the state of the economy. My guest is Dr. Katele Kalumba, who is former finance minister. Do you have anyone online? Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Yes, who's on the line and where are you calling us from? Mr. who? Mr. Mlota calling from Undola. What is your question, sir? can't hear you.
I can't hear what he's saying.
I think you'll have to call back. We are receiving very... Hello? Mr. Mlota? You will have to call back. We are receiving very bad sound. If we can accommodate other calls, +26 0978 594682. Do we have anyone online? Hello, good morning. Who is on the line and where are you calling us from? My condo calling from within Lusaka. Please go on with your question and your contribution.
Okay. That's why I want to recommend the minister for Israel and Security. I think they are talking letter government in terms of violating that with privatization, I want to believe that the at that point, it has been just a very different, and we are seeing it now. So many of our parents are having to use a lot to employment during the privatization here. And then I wanted to mean I want to ask you on how the knowledge that we are running from the sale of government property, we are turning to the economy and the benefits that these landing brought to the economy. Then the other thing on the issue of accusation leveled against is against on the issue that either of the beneficiaries of the aspect of privatization. Now the question is the minister, is it possible for someone who is not in the government sector to benefit from the sale of government property? Because we believe that having it
The last part is cut.
Right, I think we
Can I get the first part of his question?
all right, yes, you get the first part of the question. Let me just accommodate one more caller before we can get to the answers. Do we have anyone online?
Hello?
Yes, who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Kinsala.
Mr. Chungu from Chinsali. What is your question, Mr. Chungu?
My question is this: the debate that we have currently is the effect of HH on privatization. Yes. The effect of HH on privatization, what is Katele Kalumba saying? Did HH have an effect on the privatization, and how has it become so rich after privatization? Let Katele Kalumba clear that for the nation.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. All right, I think we can have these two, and then let's begin with the last one. People asking how, overnight, I think HH, president of UPND, got rich. They are suspecting that could be proceeds of privatization. Do you agree with that?
Well, as I was for many years a member of parliament. We had a code of conduct, ethical code of conduct as a member of parliament, as a ministerial code of conduct. You are subject to investigation in regard to whatever properties or assets you have. You're supposed to declare them to the speaker as a member of parliament, so that the Zambian public can know what assets you had before and after. But this was not the case with respect to members of the ZPA. They had no obligation to declare any assets at all. So I'm no position to judge how much asset Mr. Hakainde had before privatization. But going by what the media has said through Honorable Nawakwe, that Mr. Hakainde did not have any wealth before privatization. The only issue I have here is the question of declaration of interest in the privatization of certain assets, because that is bound by law. Any individual, regardless of who he is, has to declare interest, is participating in the process of procurement or sale of any asset, public asset, private, corporate asset. You have to declare interest. And in this instance, the simple question is whether or not, if I was asking for impact, whether or not Mr. Hakainde Hichilema declared interest in any of the things that is now known to be a party of. I have no record to answer that question that he declared interest. I can only go by what others have said, that he never declared interest. To me, as Minister of Finance, when I was signing on the final deal of the implementation of construction of Sun International Hotel, I had no information whatsoever from him that he was an interested party, shareholder or director in Sun International Zambia. Now, by law, that is illegal. You have to declare your interest by company law. Now, if we take that in itself, Zambians should give room to appropriate wings of government to look into that issue. Let's not drag the whole country backwards, okay? Let's look at that issue professionally. This hype of public discussion, or let go, let account for this, well, they can be answered by the appropriate investigative wings of government. If there's any impropriety on his part, they'll come to light. There's no point calling each other names, insulting each other, calling each other thief or whatever.
Yeah.
No, let the appropriate wings of government investigate this and let him account. It's a simple question. Did you have interest in Sun International Zambia? Yes or no? It's a multiple choice question.
But I think he said no.
If you say no, then the investigative wings of government investigate and they find yes, then you are brought to account, to book.
Yeah, but one thing that I think
I can say no.
One of the members did highlight last night was that yes, quite right, is now one of the directors.
Is now one of the directors,
but not a shareholder. Maybe bring us up to speed.
Oh no! Come on, hell! Don't confuse the Zambian public. No corporation picks anyone from the street to be a director. I have shares in Lafarge, which I bought, and they have been subject to investigation, and they are clean. Now, I, as a shareholder with my fellow members, shareholders, are eligible for election to the board as directors, representing fellow shareholders. No one is picked out from the street to be a director of a board such as Sun International. No, come on, don't fool Zambians, they're intelligent. Give me another question.
Let's go to another question. The gentleman Mulota from Mongo is asking how the money that we got off, selling of these assets, how have we used them? Can we point at one particular investment that we've made out of this money?
Part of the conditions that we wrote into the HIPIC program, which came as a result of our privatization program, was to invest that money into education, into fighting the HIV pandemic, into addressing the questions of the street children, into reducing maternal mortality rates, improving infant mortality rates. Those are the benchmarks we wrote for ourselves. And I argued that Zambia must write its own conditionalities and not have these conditionalities imposed upon it. I argued that case in Berlin when we were at a meeting, and I criticized the IMF for imposing conditionalities on countries. And I acquired the right for my country to write its own conditions. And those are the conditions we wrote. Mind you, in Prague, when we had the IMF meeting, I said, I would rather be outside there with the protesters against the IMF than inside debating nonsense. When poor countries like my country had been given a program that was unachievable, the ESAF program. The conditionalities were out of this world. We could not meet these conditionalities for achieving HIPEC unless you allowed us to write our conditionalities. We know best than you sitting in Washington to write conditionalities for us. I remember a young man called Piri, who was by then in the Daily Mail, working with the Daily Mail, criticizing me for criticizing the IMF and saying the IMF and the World Bank, they are upset with me. And I say, well, they can go to hell. No Zambian, no country celebrates the conditionalities of the IMF. Many countries have protested. I'm just being their spokesperson. And from that time on, the IMF started revising their conditionalities. Thanks to Zambia. So, in terms of where the money was being spent, education, health, reducing maternal mortality rates, reducing infant mortality rates, these were the conditionalities we had to put for ourselves.
Let's come back to the issue of our currency. How does the future look like? What are the prospects, for the future of our currency?
I think we need to put our heads together as a country. We need to assemble rather than disassemble. We need to put all our energies in trying to improve, stimulate our economy, try to exercise our enterprise, to create wealth for our economy.
Just hold on your thoughts, Doctor. Hello, good morning. Who is on the line? Yes, who is on the line?
Yes, sir.
Who is on the line and where are you calling us from?
This is Mr. Mwala, calling you from Kazumola border.
Yes, Mr. Mwala. What is your question or your contribution this morning?
Yes, I want to ask former Minister Katele Kalumba. Just simply maybe two questions to be more precise.
Go ahead.
Now, why is it talking about just one type of hotel or one individual called the Inglema now? Wow, living fire tenders. I never heard Katele Kalumba come to talk about the fire tenders. I never heard Katele Kalumba coming to talk about the 46,000, those material houses. I've never heard giving it talk about all those. That things that are affecting now. Then I'm talking about things that affected us then, when they were in government. We are putting like you start talking to that was so let me also see now. So we're supposed to now face the world to stop things that are feeling now, even before we look at those who saw them. But this cabinet that we're really having now, it's more of a structural cabinet. It is not centered in one Zambia, one nation. No. So instead of us talking about the same term of Katele Kalumba, we are talking about HS. Those are things that are bygone. And then let us focus what we can do now to bring our quarter in line, to bring our fuel down. How many people are dying without medicine in the hospitals? Those things that we should do. Look at, not what they did. No. Let's talk about what we can do now in Zambia. So for me, if we look at those people, we are going to have a better country.
I think we've got it. Just of the point.
Yeah, all right, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, let me pick one more call up. Do you have anyone online?
I don't want to lose the momentum of this man's.
Yeah, just for one. Yeah. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Yes, good morning. Who's on the line and where are you calling us from?
Chansonga Stephanie, and this question is addressed to the Honorable Mr. Katele Kalumba.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking this question according to the level of my education. I have to understand, is it wrong, say, for example, you are selling Zambia and I sit in the board of the privatization agent, then at a later stage, I buy some shares. Is there any form for me there?
All right. All right, thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
All right, I think for now we just get to pick those two cores. People asking this very important question.
Why now?
Why now that we're nearing an election that you want to throw mud at this good man, HH?
I don't think when I was coming to your studios that I was asked to come and discuss the issue of Ichilema. I don't think.
No.
I don't think that's what I got. I got the invitation to discuss the issues of macroeconomics in Zambia, and I have done my best with the information available to me to discuss those issues, including issues that affect me personally and so on. And I've tried to account to the public what my role could have been then. So by the sentiment of my brother from Kazungula, I think I'm misplaced in this respect. I'm not here to discuss particularly the issue of Ichilema, but if when you have raised the question, I've responded to it as with the information available to me. Now, connected to that, the second questioner, there's nothing wrong whatsoever for an individual to buy shares in a company as a Zambian. But there's everything wrong with an individual who is advising a body or an entity, a sovereign body for this matter, a state such as Zambia, to be an interested party either at the time they are doing so or with the intention to do so in future. Mind you, I use the term intentionality. I think lawyers would appreciate the context I put it in. With intention to do so in future, to sell an asset without declaring an interest. You understand? So, but if that intention was not there, and it can be proven so, there's nothing wrong. But if intention can be proved that you did intend to be a partner whilst you were dealing with the selling of a public asset, such as is the case in point here, then there's everything wrong. And that's a matter of law, not a matter of tribunals and public hyper. No, leave it to the arms of the state that are responsible for investigating such issues. Let's not leave it to mob lynching, to political psych.
Yeah, but as you conclude, Honorable Katele Kalumba, from the bottom of your heart, do you think there was some dubious business transactions of privatization? Just personal, genuinely speaking, do you think, dubiousness would have probably, hijacked the process?
I can only answer that with the information available.
As then, Minister.
But at the time I was Minister of Finance, I did not have information to the effect that was dubiousness in any event. Where there were cases of dubiousness, either in the procurement of certain things, my position was clear. No. There was a question of importing fertilizer through Spain.
Yeah.
I said no. There was a question of privatizing certain assets to a Mr. Katele Kalumba. I said no. there was a question of privatizing Luanshaman's Ramcos. I said no when I sensed dubiousness. That was my position. And my conscience is clear. I made those decisions based on information available to me that was, this deal is not right, provided by experts that are paid to advise me as Minister of Finance. And I have to make the call, whether we go ahead or we don't go ahead.
What is your guidance to the nation ahead of the elections next year? Conclusive.
My guidance, I can speak in my personal capacity, but also as a trustee of the Zambia Center for Interparty Dialogue. Ease up, back off from violence, dialogue, debate rationally, be reasonable players, be reasonable persons in the political sphere. Deal with facts, evidence. Don't deal with rumor and innuendos. Try and debate policy facts. If Lungu has made mistakes, deal with the mistakes as factual issues. If Akaine Chilema has erred, deal with those errors as factual issues, period. Not sensationalizing rumors and things that you don't know. Accusing people of committing suicide or doing things like that when they are alive. Also, as already in the social media that Honorable Mavumba had committed suicide, and this is life. I've been visited with that insult myself in 2002. It's wrong. It is blatantly wrong. Let's do our politics smart. Smart politics requires intelligent debate. Reasonableness is the equation. That's what we need in Zambia. Our people will listen to us when we are reasonable, when we are factual.
Dr. Kalumba, I would like to thank you so much for having made time to come on the assignment this morning.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. I've never had this opportunity. I'm grateful.
We are humbled. Thank you so much to my producer and director, Mavuto Puri. For now, good morning and enjoy the rest of our programming.